believe this?
Sir, we have been sabotaged.
The Russians want us to sink her. We might have to do that.
The hunt for Red October.
Hello YouTubers and welcome to Big Buddha is Watching. I'm Big Buddha and today I'm going to be looking at the 1990 Cold War thriller The Hunt for Red October. This is another subscriber request. This is for my friend Steve. He's a new subscriber to the channel. New subscribers get a new request. I knew he was a long time fan of this film. And it's a film I quite like. I've seen it once or twice. I saw it originally at the cinema when it came out. I've seen it probably 3 or 4 times since then over the past 28 years since this originally came out. Yeah, this one's for him. This is The Hunt for Red October, the first Jack Ryan movie. As I say, I saw it in 1990. I remember going as it was like a family outing to the cinema. I can only imagine it was one of those cases of, oh, let's go to the cinema, let's see what's on. Okay, I guess that will do. I can't imagine knowing me and my family, any of us was dragging the other one along to see this movie. We just weren't Cold War thriller people. But we gave it a go. I remember it being one of those films that was maybe a couple of years away from being too mature for me. My brother still to this day says the film's boring. He remembers falling asleep halfway through it. And yeah, I mean, rewatching it again the other night, I mean, it's not a kid's movie. It's not an 8-year-old's movie. Not that it's particularly violent or there's any extreme content in it. I mean, there's a little violence towards the end. It's just, it's a very adult story. It deals with the Cold War. The film's set in 1984, so it deals with the worry about nuclear tensions rising between both the Eastern and the Western Bloc, and it was very prevalent at the time. As I say, the film came out in 1990. I believe it was 12 months, maybe 2 years at the most, before the fall of the Soviet Union. And indeed, the filmmakers had to set it in the year 1984 and say explicitly the film did take place in 84 and not 1990, simply because the geopolitical situation had moved on, the tensions between the Reds and the West. The plot of the film wouldn't have made any sense to a 1990 audience if it hadn't been set in 1984. The plot for the film, if you don't know, it's one of those plots that it's such an engaging idea for a thriller that it's one of those ones that you can't really believe that it hadn't been done before. Indeed, it was actually partly inspired by a real event, a real mutiny on I think it was a Russian warship rather than a submarine, in fact, that took place in 1975. The plot of the film is Sean Connery plays the Lithuanian, not Russian, as many people make out, the Lithuanian commander of the submarine, the Red October. He commits an act of mutiny. He strays away from the Reds, and him and his crew essentially take command of the Red October, a new Russian sub armed with nuclear missiles. For reasons that are unknown, at least in the first act of the film, the Red October's powered by a silent propulsion system, which means it's very difficult to detect in the water. It's then up to Jack Ryan, who's a CIA analyst, played by Alec Baldwin in the film. He takes it upon himself to locate the Red October. In the meantime, obviously, everyone else is looking for the Red October, both in the East and the West, because obviously the Russians want their submarine back, and the US are getting itchy at the thought of a rogue commander taking a nuclear-armed Russian submarine into US waters. And could this mean the start of World War III? Of course, it transpires that Ramirez and his crew are not intent on starting World War III. They simply want to defect to the US They've grown weary of the political regime in Russia, and can see the writing on the wall really is there for the Soviet Union. So they want to defect to the West and become American citizens. And they decide the best way as a goodwill gesture is to hand over at least part of their nuclear capabilities to the West.
Then I will live in Montana. And I will marry a round American woman and raise rabbits. And she will cook them for me. And I will have a pickup truck. Or possibly even a recreational vehicle. And drive from state to state. Do they let you do that?
Yes.
No papers?
No papers. State to state.
But it's really a race against the clock movie for Jack Ryan to get into contact with Sean Connery and his crew before the Red October is shot down, or somebody mistakenly thinks that what the Red October is doing is an act of war. So there's many opportunities there for a great potboiler plot, a great thriller plot, a great spy movie come Cold War story there. And the film, and indeed the novel on which it's based, takes full advantage of this fact. This is one of those Sean Connery movies that's gained notoriety over the years. Sean Connery was a last-second replacement for... I believe they had another actor playing Ramirez who actually got a few days into filming and then, for whatever reason, decided that the film wasn't for him. So Connery was drafted in at the last minute to replace this actor. He's not an incredibly well-known actor. This would have been a star-making role for him, I'm sure. They drafted in a big star in the shape of Connery at the time. And this is one of those roles that Connery is mocked a little for now. Especially in the 80s, he seemed to have a habit of picking roles in which he was playing anything other than a Scotsman. The Egyptian character he plays in Highlander, obviously the Lithuanian commander in this film. I think the reason they made him Lithuanian is to explain away the Scottish accent. The Irish cop, Maloney, in The Untouchables. The big joke about Connery is that he plays all these foreign characters with a Scottish accent. Well, yeah, he does, but at the end of the day, it's Sean Connery. I'd say Sean Connery's greatest asset is his voice, and when you've got that commanding presence on screen, and B, those deep, broguish Edinburgh tones to your voice, then I think that overrides any deficiency you may have in the accent department.
Kakovny but Bakaru. So funny.
Well, the captain seems to think you're some sort of cowboy.
New по-русски.
Немного. Полезно знать, что думает противник. Не правда ли?
It is. I present you the ballistic missile submarine Red October. My officers and I request asylum in the United States of America.
And the other great misunderstanding of this film is that people always ask, why do the Russian characters all of a sudden switch to speaking English? I can never understand why people have such trouble grasping this concept. The characters at the start of the film, they start off speaking Russian, and then there's a pan in to one of the characters' faces, and on the word Armageddon, he suddenly switches to speaking in English, and it pans out. And people, because of course Armageddon is actually the same in both Russian and English. And people still to this day question, well, why do they suddenly start speaking English? It's like, don't you understand? It's what I like to refer to as the hello factor. In hello, I never believed that the characters were speaking English, even though they were French. The characters in The Hunt for Red October are speaking in Russian. It's the universal translator. That's the power of cinema. It will translate into whatever language you want to hear. So you've got to use your imagination when watching these characters. The characters are speaking in Russian, except, of course, when they meet the Americans towards the end of the film, and then they are speaking in English. I got this at the age of 10, but it amazes me how people still don't understand this concept when they see it in films. Connery's pretty good in this film, and Alec Baldwin, he makes a pretty good Jack Ryan. He was the first Jack Ryan on screen. I think to date now we've had 4 big screen Jack Ryans. So him, Harrison Ford, Ben Affleck and Chris Pine. We're about to get a 5th, a small screen Jack Ryan in the guise of John Krasinski in a TV series simply titled Jack Ryan. I always thought it was a shame that they didn't stick with Baldwin in the role. I would have liked to have seen him in Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger and The Sum of All Fears. And I'd have liked to have seen McTiernan returning to direct those films. I think they would have been a better choice for his career than The Last Action Hero and Rollerball. But Baldwin, I mean, at least he still holds the distinction of being in the best Jack Ryan movie so far. The Hunt for Red October is the best one because it's the only one that really... I mean, it was the first novel that was ever written featuring the Jack Ryan character, and it's the only one where I think the story really holds its own. I think all the others... The draw is meant to be just that it features the Jack Ryan character. I mean, I've only read a couple of the novels, but I've seen all the films, and just the draw of having the Jack Ryan character in isn't enough. I don't think Clancy ever came up with a plot as good as the Hunt for Red October, or at least a concept as good and as engaging. You're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't, really, now, if you choose to play the Jack Ryan character. I mean, of course, the other reason that no actor really has excelled as well in the Jack Ryan role since Alec Baldwin played him is because, in all honesty, the character just isn't that interesting, I don't think. Certainly, in this film, no one's went into it wanting to see just the central character alone and see what Baldwin did with the role. I think there was a thought after it came out that, maybe we could make a franchise out of this character to rival the Bond movies. Jason Bourne had more going for him than this character. There was an intrigue with the Jason Bourne character, with the whole the amnesiac spy thing. Who was he? Why was he an amnesiac? Why was he betrayed by his government? But really, the Jack Ryan character, aside from the intriguing plots that he gets wrapped up in, there's nothing really there that's as big a draw as, say, Jason Bourne or Bond. He's kind of Bond light. He's Bond without the alcohol problem. He's a Bond that doesn't smoke. He's a Bond that's happily married with a family and doesn't womanize. And, I mean, he technically isn't even a spy. I mean, it's kind of hard to pin down what Jack Ryan's role is. He's kind of a CIA operative, but he also writes the history of military campaign books. He's also a doctor. He's a politician. He's also an ex-war veteran, sailor. So he's really a sort of a jack of all trades. But there you go. I've never really found the character as engaging as Bond. Maybe he's obviously a much more realistically defined character than Bond, but that's the reason I think that the franchise never really took off as successfully as the Bond movies ever did. The years 1987 to 1990 were very good for John McTiernan I won't go into the details too much, but the years following the release of The Hunt for October certainly weren't good for McTiernan. I'll let you find out why on your own back. But in 87 he made Predator, 88 he made Die Hard, and 1990 he made The Hunt for October. So he had three really good blockbuster action movie thrillers out there. One of the best sci-fi action movies of the 80s, one of the best action movies of the 80s. And the Hunt for Red October, a really, really solid thriller. This is definitely McTiernan's most mature film. I mean, that's down to the source material, sure, but it's only really in the final 10 minutes of the film. The maturity goes out the window, really, and it starts to feel more like Die Hard in a submarine, which I imagine is, if you went into this knowing that it was from the same director as Die Hard, that's probably what you were expecting going in, and you'd probably be disappointed, to be honest. But that's when the smart, realistic dialogue goes out the window, and a few of the lines that Baldwin starts to say do start to sound more like they're meant for John McClane. Although the plot sticks pretty closely to the book, the dumb summer blockbuster dialogue, action movie dialogue, the sort of sub-Schwarzenegger dialogue starts to creep in, at least towards the end of the film. The Hunt for Red October, although it might seem a little dry for some tastes, I do think it's quite an engaging thriller. The claustrophobic submarine setting and the Cold War potboiler plot do that make this a very engaging thriller, and it's one I do enjoy returning to every now and again. So there you go, folks, that's my thoughts on Hunt for October. And Steve, if you saw this, I hope you enjoyed the review. And until next time, folks, this is me, Big Buddha, signing off, and I shall see everyone out there in YouTube land.
Sleep brings dreams of home. Christopher Columbus.
Welcome to the New World, sir.